Hello, good morning, friends. It's a nice Saturday morning, actually, sunny weather here in Kolar, and as you can see around me, it's a very beautiful kind of a climate to kind of do motor vlogging. And today I'm here to not talk about any journey or destinations. Actually, I'm going for a destination ride tomorrow. So it's a place called Panchapalli Dam via the Rocky Ridge Cafe. So I'll come back to you with a fresh new vlog on that. But today, what I'm going to talk about is the stuff that's there in the background, my G310 GS. I have been riding it for the last 17,000 kilometers, about 1.5 years. So I have a pretty good impression and idea about what the vehicle is about. I'm not a mechanical engineer. Not going to give you a lot of technical specifications, but what I'm going to definitely let you know is how does it feel on everyday use perspective actually. So that's what I'm going to tell you from a regular rider who rides in the city and sometimes on the highway, occasionally would probably go the beaten track. Okay, hope you enjoy the video. Do give it a like, a thumbs up, and of course do subscribe to my channel so that I can get encouraged to bring such content to you from time to time. So the moment you look at the GS, the impression that you get is of a large machine. It is definitely having generous proportions. I had a look at the Scrambler. It definitely looks bigger than the Speed 400, but it still looks smaller compared to the GS. So when you look at the GS, it gives you an idea that you are riding a bigger machine, a more comfortable machine, a more off-road capable machine. In real life, how much more off-road capabilities we are going to discuss about that, but at least the visual impression does make it look like a much more bigger machine. And well, if you have to talk about the quality, let me talk about the GS first. I'll talk about the Scrambler later. Quality is impeccable. I have no absolutely qualms about the quality of parts that they've put in, starting from the braided brake wires to the kind of quality of the aluminum handlebars that they have given, the quality of the plastic, the quality of the tires. I have completed almost 17,000 kilometers and you can see the condition of the tires. They are pretty good now. They can go for another 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers. They are not purely off-road tires. So the off-road credentials of the bike are okayish, I would say. It's not meant for extreme off-road. And the things that actually doesn't allow it to do extreme off-road is basically two things. One is the tires. They are 70-30 kind of tires. You can, of course, that is something you can change. You can put a 50-50 kind of tire, which has 50% off-road and 50% tarmac capability. But the things that is going to be difficult to change in the suspension. It has got a very comfortable suspension. Don't get me wrong. It's fantastic for riding mild off-roads, soft roads and tarmac and on open highways. But it's not great because it's a kind of a wallowy suspension. It gives that wallowy feeling when you're going for extreme off-roads. So it kind of bottoms out, tends to bottom out. I haven't bottomed out on it yet, but I have not done those kind of extreme off-road. I have not faced those extreme off-road situations yet too. So that's the kind of limitation of this bike. Do not treat it like an enduro bike. It is not, and it will treat you well. So it can do decent off-road. It gives you a very comfortable plush ride. I'm going to talk about it when I ride the bike, and it's got fantastic amount of quality. And the visual appeal, you can see it's phenomenal. It does look like something very different from the regular motorcycles or two-wheelers that you see around you. And as you can see, from any angle, it looks fantastic. It, of course, has a very strong resemblance to the bigger GS siblings that it has. Of course, the big brothers, the 850 and the 1250. It does look very similar, and visually, it's extremely appealing. And one of the reasons why I bought this motorcycle is because of the visual appeal. Okay, I can be very honest about it. I just fell for the looks of it. But then that's a very personal opinion. So what appeals to you may not appeal to me. Some people like the robotish kind of look of the modern nakeds. Some people like the, kind of a rugged looks of the GS. Some people like the more traditional and classic look of the Scrambler. So it's a very subjective thing. I leave it to you, which is the kind of look that you would prefer.
My BMW G310 GS, and I'm riding some of the pothole ridden roads of Bangalore. So this is very close to my house, but as I try to get onto the highway, I have to cross these sections where there are numerous potholes, there is a lot of traffic jam. So I'm going to tell you how it feels riding my GS in these kind of conditions, which is almost an everyday kind of condition for all of us, most of us. So I have told in my earlier vlogs also that the ride quality of the GS is something that's worth speaking about, and I still stick to my point because it doesn't let you feel anything. So it's a very comfortable glide over the potholes, and the best thing about the engine is that it's a very tractable engine. It does not have a peaky kind of torque, and the torque curve is kind of linear. And right now, if you see, I am at about 3000 rpm. I am doing about 40 kilometers per hour, and I am on the 4th gear. Now I can also shift up, and well, I have to shift down. It is 22 kilometers per hour now. So there is traffic in front, but let me show you how tractable this engine is actually. And yes, so now it is about 3000 rpm. I am on the 4th gear. I have just shifted up. I am on the 5th gear. I am still doing about 30 kilometers per hour at about 2000 rpm, and I have to hold my clutch a bit, but on the 4th gear is comfortable at about 2000 rpm, 4th gear, 30 kilometers per hour. It's quite comfortable. So it's quite a tractable engine, not a notchy kind of engine, you know, that kind of knocks and rattles you at lower gears, you know, the KTM-ish engines, if you know what I'm talking about. Another feature of this bike, the moment you sit on it, I would say you sit in it, you don't sit on it, because this bike kind of cuddles you and you're surrounded from the sides, and it kinds of course the seat height of this and the Scrambler is almost the same, 835 mm if I am not wrong, and they're a little bit tallish kind of thing. If you are below 5'8 or 5'7, you will have some kind of a problem. At 5'8, you know, I also have to kind of tiptoe. I cannot place both my feet comfortably on the ground. But this, once you are seated on this bike, the suspension is very, very supple, almost too supple, and you kind of sit inside the bike. It goes down a little bit and you are quite comfortable. So that's one of the features of this bike, and characteristic of the bike, I would rather say. The second thing is that the moment you sit on this bike, well, the signal has started, let us move. The moment you sit in this bike, you feel that big bike kind of feeling. Of course, visually also it is much bigger than the Scrambler 400X. So if you have a hefty body build and you would like something more bulkier, something that's more visually substantial, then I think the GS makes more sense, because it's definitely having the big bike feel, and it's got a bigger road presence, no wonder about that. So you have the nice, I have used the handlebar raisers actually, and right now the handlebar comes on very easily, and of course the position is otherwise also very nice, the handlebar position. The raisers particularly help you when you are saddling on the bike or you are going off the road. So you have that big bike feeling, and somehow I feel that when you sit on this bike, you have a feeling that you can go over any terrain, you know. It gives you that ADV kind of feel. You feel that you can cross any country, any sort of terrain, any sort of turf, gravel, road, dirt. It cannot, because it is not an enduro bike. Definitely it is not meant for, you know, strong off-roading or very serious off-roading. It's just meant for soft-roading or kind of going off the road sometimes. It's mainly made for comfortable cruising on the highways for long distances actually, and encounter a few patches of broken tarmac or broken road whenever you do. So that's the purpose of this bike, but it doesn't make you feel that. When you feel on the bike, given the tall seat height and the suspension, the broad tires, the wide handlebars and the size of the bike, you feel that you can take on any kind of terrain. But don't try that. because this has its limitations going off-road. But yes, decent amount of off-road, some kind of a broken road, gravel, broken tarmac, it can easily do, not a problem, and it won't even pass on any of the undulations to your back. So it absorbs everything. When you go on a bump, so right now I'm going on a bump, it doesn't let you feel anything. You can easily saddle. Even if you don't saddle, the jerks don't come very strongly on your spine. So it's a very, very comfortable bike inside the city in conditions like this, when you're traveling on the road and you have patches of broken tarmac, patches of broken road. This is a fantastic bike to be on, and it will make you feel very, very confident once you are astride the bike. Of course, at standstill or when you are going to park the bike, it's going to be a little bit of more of a challenge, because it is kind of bigger in size. It's not very heavy, but with all the accessories that are put on, it has definitely become heavier. But it's not particularly light also. So I used to have an Enfield Meteor before this that was definitely about 15-20 kilos more than this, so it did feel heavier. But mistake me not, the weight distribution is fantastic on this bike. BMW definitely knows how to distribute the weight on the bike, and once you astride the bike, you don't feel anything. You feel it's as light as your scooty. You know, that's the kind of compliment I would give to the weight management on this bike. So as you can see right now, I am at 3000 RPM on the 4th gear. Let me shift up. So I'm on the 5th gear. I'm doing 40 kilometers per hour, about 2500 RPM, and the bike is happily chugging along. Let me shift up. I'm on the 6th gear. I have to do, the engine knocking is there, of course. I think at the 6th gear I'll be doing around 3000 RPM, and I'll be probably doing about 45 km per hour. Bike is quite happy. 50 km per hour. So you can easily do 50 km per hour in the 6th gear, that is the top gear, at about 3000 RPM. So that's the kind of tractability of the bike. It's not a problem at all doing your rounds inside the city or on the tarmac close to the highways. Talk about the engine character. So as you start the bike, you kind of feel it's vibey. You know, the engine has some kind of a noisy nature at low revs, but as the revs climb, so when you go from about 3500, 4000, 5000 RPM, the revs kind of, the vibes seem to kind of disappear, and a very nice gentle purr that emanates from the engine, which actually you will enjoy. It's a very unique character. I think every engine has a very unique character of its own. So some engines, you know, are very likable at the beginning, because when you rev them at standstill, but when you ride them, they might give a different feeling, even for some of the bigger bikes, 600, 650cc bikes I'm talking about. But this is a bike which doesn't give you a very nice feeling when you are revving it, or when is it at standstill. But as the revs climb, it's not bad. You will start actually enjoying it. It appears quite smooth actually. So right now I'm doing about 50 km per hour. I'm at about 3500 RPM. There are no vibes at all. Handlebar, foot brakes, nothing. So as I pick up speed, I'm doing 60 km per hour at about 4000 RPM. Very mild buzz, you know. I mean, you cannot call it a vibe actually. So I mean, it's a machine. End of the day, you know, we are not riding a cycle. So if people expect that, you know, there will be nothing at all, then I think it's wrong from a machine like this. It's a mechanical machine. I need to feel that there are some mechanical bits beneath your legs actually. So even if you go at higher revs, so I am at about 5th gear right now. I am doing, currently if you can see, I am at 4000 RPM and I am doing 60 km per hour. It is not very comfortable. So it kind of is asking you to shift up. So when you go above 60 km per hour, you would preferably be at the 6th gear, and then you can of course climb on the revs. So I'm doing 4000. Now I can go 5000, you know. It's quite comfortable, not a problem. So when the vibes actually start coming in is basically above 100 km per hour or 110 km per hour, I would say, when you are doing more than 7000 RPM, you know, 7000, 8000 RPM, that's when you kind of feel that this engine is not meant for revs beyond that. This is meant for revs to keep in a speed range of about 110 km per hour. So in my Meteor earlier, this will be about 90 to 100 km per hour. It's about 10 or 20 km per hour more. So about the vibes on the GS. Now I'm on the open highway, and let me demonstrate to you when does the vibes really start creeping in, and what is the comfortable speed that you can do on the open highway when we are actually touring. Okay, because these ADVs are essentially meant to be touring machines. So right now, as you can see, I am doing about 70 kilometers per hour. I am doing about 4000 RPM. Okay, and there are hardly any vibrations. It's butter smooth actually. I am on the 6th gear. Let me actually accelerate a bit now. I am right now 80 km per hour. I am doing about 5000 RPM. It's still very smooth. If I can accelerate further, you can see I am doing 85, 86. So I am doing 90 km per hour. I am close to 6000 RPM, about 5500 RPM. And I don't think there is an issue at all. And I think these are very same cruising speeds on the highway, 90 to 100 km per hour. And that is why the Royal Enfields are so popular. Because most of the time, 90% of the time, people do not do speeds more than that. So people don't like REs for only of the 10% of the time when they will be doing, kind of breaking the sound barriers. So this bike is also of a similar nature, with some little bit of more performance. So if I can kind of rev it a little bit more, so yes, 90 km per hour, 5000 RPM is butter smooth, not a problem. And what happens when you suddenly come across a speed breaker like this? You can just stand up, look at me. I just saddled right now, and nothing, not a problem. There was a jigsaw next to me. That guy had to really slow down. So that's the advantage of having big vehicles like this. If you suddenly encounter a pothole or a speed breaker or something like that, which is given kind of unpredictability we have in our Indian road conditions still, even though it has improved a lot, I think you can easily glide over it. You can stand up on the foot pegs if you have the handlebar raisers, or even if you don't, and depending on your height, and you can really enjoy the ride and not be bothered about what comes on your way as long as you are alert. And if there is traffic in front of you and you have to really overtake, not a problem, shift down, go on the 5th gear. You can do it on the 6th gear also. It picks up speed easily. But just to be on the safer side, you can shift down, 1 gear down, and just ring the throttle. 70, 80, 6th gear, 90 km per hour. You can easily overtake on the highways. Traffic moving at 90 to 100 km per hour, overtaking them is not a problem. And most of the traffic, 98% of the traffic is moving at those kind of speeds on the highway. Now let me see what happens if I kind of rev the throttle a little more. So I'm in the 6th gear, I am doing 80 km per hour. If I accelerate further, so right now I am doing say 90, I am doing 95, the bike is rock solid. I'm doing 100 km per hour, not a problem, 6000 RPM. Raise it further, I'm doing 104, 107, 108, 109, 110, I am about 7000 RPM. I don't feel the vibrations, I don't know what people talk about, not a problem. This can actually go to 130 km per hour quite easily. With some effort it goes to 140, and if you are lucky it will go to 150 also. So I think this is a fantastic highway touring machine, more than what you will need for 90% of the time. And I hope that kind of summarizes what you are paying the premium for and what the GS310 is capable of. Now I am doing about 70 km per hour right now. If I am to use my rear brakes, they are not very sharp, I can tell you. They are a kind of little bit of spongy in nature. And what I've read is that, what I know of is that for motorcycles which are meant to go off the road, actually should not have a very sharp bite on the brakes actually, because that can result in kind of a slip and a fall. So I think from that perspective it's okay. But if you were to use the front brake, let me demonstrate. So I'm doing about 80 km/h. If I were to use my front brake, they are more than enough. They have got a recent feel, and the ABS really clicks on very nicely. It's not intrusive. It actually helps you de-accelerate with a lot of confidence.